Welcome to the cancel hour.
And the controversial Dinesh D'Souza is back. Dinesh, welcome back to the Rick and Bubba Show. How are you?
Hey, thanks, guys. This is really good. In fact, this time I get to see you guys. Normally, it's just on the phone. And so I have to kind of conjure up an image of what you look like. But now I can actually see you directly. Well, it's a very different vibe.
Yeah, you probably wish you couldn't.
Yeah, be careful. Be careful what you ask for. So, Dinesh, you know this is not going to surprise you. We were, and you hear the tongue-in-cheek joiner coming out of the break. More true than not. When we first did that, it was supposed to be a joke. It's not really a joke anymore. But we literally, after the last time we interviewed you, on our YouTube channel, they actually put up a warning. If you're going to watch this archive, just warning, they're going to talk to Dinesh D'Souza. Warning!
You're so dangerous.
I mean, a warning? What are we talking about?
You know, it's I'm chuckling at some of the headlines from these leftist places like the Daily Beast and Mediaite about the movie. What they say is, we've seen 2,000 Mules, so you don't have to.
Dinesh, I've got to tell you, I'm not a big conspiracy guy to start with, but we all felt like something was a little amiss in the election, but we had big claims. We couldn't back it up in court, so what do you do with that? But after watching your movie, very, very disturbing. Wow. Well,
the movie does something that I think the other claims didn't do, because a lot of the other claims, think, for example, of Sidney Powell, I have a lot of affidavits.
Right.
Now, the problem with affidavits is Mr. X says this, Mrs. Y says that, but who are they? Why are they saying that? Are they telling the truth? You can always keep pushing it one step back. And I remember when I watched Lindell's movie, Proof Positive, you see all these lights on the screen. The Chinese are hacking our election, but I'm like, I don't see any Chinese. I mean, I see lights on a screen. Right, so I'm not a cyber guy, but I'm not in a position to be able to properly evaluate that kind of evidence. But in this film, 2,000 Mules, we use geo-tracking, cell phone geo-tracking, which everybody's kind of familiar with these days. And of course, I'm laughing when the leftist fact checkers are like, geo-tracking is not accurate, except to within like 30 feet. I'm like, really? Well, take your phone and go into a field in high grass and throw it and do a search your phone. See if it takes you within 30 feet of your phone or right to your phone.
Well, 30 foot is still pretty convincing. And you see that you guys bring the data forth and you have video to back it up. I thought one of the things that really hit home in this that you showed in the movie was these people that you were tracking who were going to multiple boxes, putting in multiple votes on multiple days. And the day after someone was convicted of stuffing the ballot box in Texas, and they used fingerprints to do it, in multiple states, multiple people, the very next day are all wearing blue gloves. Now, I thought that was extremely good evidence as to that there was a conspiracy going on.
Well, this is important because, as in any case, this is true if you're a juror in a murder case, the details are what tell you the story. Now, there are two rival theories here. Of course, the left, initially the fact checkers go, well, Dinesh, it was really cold that winter and maybe people were wearing gloves for that reason. And I'm like, have you guys seen the movie? We're not talking about woolen gloves. We're talking about latex gloves. So then they pivot to, well, of course, it's obviously explained by COVID. Now, if it's explained by COVID, you would see the mules wearing gloves all along. Right. But no, as you point out, they're wearing gloves only after the indictment comes down, by the way, in Arizona, not in Texas. So in the early voting, no gloves. And then in December, the indictment comes down. And so in the Georgia runoffs, you suddenly begin to see mules are wearing gloves, obviously not to leave fingerprints on the ballots.
So let me ask you this. Bob Barr, former AG, was interviewed about your movie, and he kind of brushed aside geo-tracking, said, it's not really reliable. Jimmy Jam, all that stuff. What do you say to that? Because he's fairly well respected. Do you think he's part of the swamp, or Do you like his opinion, or is he just wrong on this fact?
I think he's wrong on this. And look, I mean, one way you test things like geo-tracking is you just ask, how are they being applied in other areas? Now, I noticed that if you look at these, not only the charging documents, but the trials of the January 6th defendants, they're using geo-tracking to pinpoint their location. Not just were they in the general vicinity of the Capitol, but were they inside or outside the door of the building? Well, obviously, geo-tracking has to be reasonably accurate to do that. The CDC says we're using geo-tracking, all these articles out there, to verify if people are social distancing. Well, how do you do that if geo-tracking is not accurate to within 6 feet? How would you know? What use would it be to you? So you've got in multiple areas. If it was one area, you could argue it out. But you've got in multiple areas. Uber drivers are using geo-tracking to go right to their customers. They know which side of the street they're on. And remember here, we're not trying to find something that's within 10 inches. We're just trying to find out if a guy is standing in front of a drop box.
And how many he went to for how many days in a row.
Right. And see, this is the key, because one of the objections, of course, has been that, in Georgia, Dinesh, it's lawful for people to drop off the ballots of their immediate family members, which, of course, I concede. But if you're dropping off the ballots of your immediate family members, A, you don't have to do it at 3 a.m. in the morning. And B, you don't need to go to more than one drop box. Why would you go to 10 or more?
On multiple days. No, that's a big family.
Multiple days.
That's an awful big family, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is the other thing, Dinesh, that the listeners of the show and the callers are bringing up, and this is the thing I think we need to be clear on. When you see all this evidence, everybody keeps saying, "Well, why wasn't this used? Why didn't it have an impact?" And the truth is, you look at the founders. The founders are really, and then the stuff we did even going forward, we're trying to not make every election, be I contest this, I want this, I want that. But is it as simple as the window of 60 days just isn't enough to get this kind of information to anyone in time for there to be any impact of this on what's already happened?
Well, it is true that we are sort of in uncharted territory here, because the Constitution says that the electors will meet, they will vote, and then it'll be ratified by both houses of Congress, and then, of course, the president will be installed. The Constitution does not seem to anticipate the possibility. What if fraud comes out later that shows that the guy in the Oval Office got there by cheating by his own side? So I don't know legally, constitutionally, what you do about it. But I do know that there are some immediate steps that can be taken. You can interview the mules who paid you, who put you up to this, who organized this whole thing. So there's a law enforcement obvious follow-up here. Number two, there is I think there should be a movement to have electronic surveillance on all the drop boxes. You don't even need laws for this. It's in the election rules now. It's just that many states, a number of states, didn't even do it. They said, yeah, we're going to do it, but we didn't get around to it due to COVID. And so, we have surveillance every parking lot, every Home Depot, every ATM. The cost is low. The technology is available. There's no excuse for not putting surveillance on every single drop box.
All right, when we come back, we want to talk to Dinesh D'Souza about the good news is the movie is going to be even easier for you to access this weekend, starting today. And we're going to talk about that now. More theaters, around 400 across the nation, will do a normal release with this, just like they would any movie. So that's a step forward. We'll talk about that and ask a few more questions when we come back.
Rick and Bubba.
Dinesh D'Souza, our guest. Warning! 2,000 Mules is out, and it's going to be a lot easier to access this weekend. Dinesh, give us an update on that, and then I want to ask you another question. The response to the movie, obviously very good.
We've released this movie in an age of censorship, and that called for a whole new kind of business plan. I couldn't put the movie on Apple iTunes or Amazon Prime. I just don't want anyone to be able to pull it down. Can't put the trailer up on YouTube. You know about that. It's too dangerous.
Warning.
Can't advertise on Facebook. Because this topic of election fraud is taboo. It's the most censored topic in the country. So we did a very limited theatrical release, May 2nd and May 4th. We rented out 300 theaters. We filled them. So what's happened now is all these other independent theaters have come to us and go, hey, we noticed that you filled up the theater. Let's have a normal theatrical release of this movie. So it's great. This weekend, 400 theaters, by the way, about 60 of them in Texas, are opening the movie, 4 showings a day. And you can just go to 2000mules.com. It'll connect you to these ticket buying websites like Fandango. Put in your zip code. It'll tell you where it's playing near you. Buy your tickets, take your family, take your group, go see it this weekend. If we do well this weekend in the theater, we'll be in more theaters next weekend.
Yeah, I'm technically challenged. So I saw it's playing not far from where I live in Alabama. So I'm going. There you go.
Dinesh, let me ask you this, and you may not can go into this, but in the movie, you show a clear connection between these mules who are stuffing ballot boxes and several nonprofits that appear to be involved in this process. Have you named those, or can you share who any of those are?
Well, we have all the names. True the Vote has them. I have them. When you put a movie in the theater, you have to get 4 different types of insurance, and the lawyers are like, you can't use the names. Now, I could have fought them on it, but it would have delayed the process by a month or 2. I was eager to get the movie out, so I conceded on this point reluctantly not to name the organizations in the movie. But I assure you, we have the names. True the Vote, by the way, has supplied the names of the organizations in Georgia to the Georgia Secretary of State as part of an investigation that they're conducting into illegal ballot trafficking. So this is something that is very much part of the process, but no, the names are not in the movie.
It seems that there really is no recourse to what has already happened, but a legitimate concern is what's to come. Because I told Bubba, and look, I understand that there's a virus. I know it's real. I have friends, Bubba and I both do. We have mutuals, some that he has friends, I have friends that have died during the pandemic from the virus because of various reasons. We do have more, treatments now. We do have, the vaccine and all that now, and all that moving forward. I don't think it's as dangerous as it once was. It can be highly contagious. So I'm not saying that or standing in the way of that. I know that's real. But when you see something like this was a couple of weekends ago, and all of a sudden I just saw this headline and I thought about, what you're discovering in the movie. I see this headline just kind of go by. Biden administration predicting a huge surge of the virus late fall, early winter.
Sure.
And I'm like
November, Rick?
Does anybody see this? I mean, no one knows what's going to happen then, but I see them because if we didn't, what happened, and you show in this movie, the pandemic played a huge role in this. But because
absolutely. The Democrats, look, are the party of voter fraud. This is well known and goes back to the 19th century. You can see, immigrants come off the boat. There's some Democrats meeting them at the pier. Hey, listen, here's a ballot signed right here. We'll fill it out. Don't worry about it. And here's some money for, a bottle of liquor. And this has been going on for a long time. And it's also well known by anybody who watches elections that absentee ballot fraud or mail-in ballot fraud is the most common type of fraud for the obvious reason. It's the only voting that takes place outside the observation or supervision of anybody. Right. It's occurring at your home or your nursing home. Who knows what's going on over there? Homeless shelters. So what happened in 2020 because of COVID is that this part of the process, which is mail-in balloting or absentee balloting, which is normally a relatively small part of the overall election, became a huge part of the election. And so I think what happened is the fraudsters go, listen, here's an opportunity for us to ramp it up, 10-fold, 20-fold, 50-fold. And they did just that.
Yeah, I don't even really need your movie if I can just, logically think. All right, if a party says that being asked to identify yourself and prove it is somehow racist, ramping up hey, because of the pandemic, we got to make some exceptions we normally wouldn't make. Well, anybody can piece together what would be the reason, since we've said on the show, I'm sure you've said it 1,000 times, every other part of life that people seem to be able to get identification and produce for, which is
like everything we do, Rick.
Everything, that somehow there's a disadvantage to minorities if we require them to identify themselves to vote. I've never seen anyone walk that narrative out and explain that to me, but all I think of is, well, you're doing this because you think there's some advantage in that. I don't even need to see.
Look, you're right. I mean, no, people talk about voter suppression, right? Why don't they talk about banking suppression? Why don't they talk about airline suppression?
Yeah.
Because after all, if a black guy goes on an airplane, he's got to show an ID. So is that discouraging blacks from flying? No. So you're right. That's absolutely true. But see, I think where the movie comes in, the only line you put me off where you're like, I don't need your movie. I was
well, what I mean,
you do need it. Here's why you need it.
What I mean,
you need it for this reason.
Yeah.
If you're missing your Rolex watch or your Apple Watch,
right.
and you think the maid took it, that's one thing.
Right.
It's a whole other thing for me to say, you know what? There's a surveillance camera. She's taking the watch and putting it in her bag.
Yeah.
And now your suspicion is completely validated. You are right.
And that was the point I was going to make. So I'm already thinking this could be a problem, and then your movie shows me, yeah, Rick, it was. This is the confirmation of what I'm logically thinking could happen, right?
Right. And you can see the discombobulating effect it's having on the left because they're trying every which way. I mean, as you know, at one point in the movie, we talk about a murder and how cell phone geo-tracking is helpful in solving a murder, because if you know the angle of the bullet, you can then look at the cell phone devices that were in that area, and probably one of those guys is the shooter, right? And here's NPR, fact check. Dinesh D'Souza claims to have solved a murder. I don't claim to have solved a murder all by myself. I'm simply saying that this is a helpful technology to help identify suspects. Law enforcement knows that. They do this all the time. So they create a straw man, then they shoot it down, and they believe, we've shown that this is a misrepresentation on the part of the movie. Not so.
Well, it's obvious that looking at your panel, that there's conservative people that said, hey, I'm not really sold that anything took place, that when the movie ends, it certainly made a difference with them.
Dinesh, let me ask you this. Since this has come out, have you had any high-ranking officials on either side of the aisle or dealing with elections that have come to you and said, hey, this is disturbing to us. We really need to look closer at this?
Well, just about 3 days ago, the sheriff in Yuma County, Arizona, has opened up a new investigation into illegal ballot trafficking. And this is significant because the mule that is interviewed in the movie is from Yuma County. She's from San Luis. Now, the sheriff is saying, I'm not doing it just in response to a movie, but True the Vote has been doing election investigation in Yuma for a while. And so I'm actually not looking for a senator to pontificate on it or something. Right. I'm looking for this kind of on-the-ground investigation that will make its way up because it will help to bust the cartel.
Dangerous Dinesh, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Hey, go out and
sorry for all the troubles I'm causing you on YouTube.
Well, don't worry. Right. Nobody will see this, but we've enjoyed it.
Yeah, we've enjoyed it. Find out where it's playing. 400 new theaters this weekend. Go to 2000mules.com.
Rick and Bubba.